Hello everyone, Giltar here with an action figure review. This time we'll be looking at the Crysis 2 Nanosuit figure by NECA. This figure was released in March of 2011, and the manufacturer's suggested retail price was somewhere between $15 to $17. Now the immediate selling point of the figure is simply that it's a known video game property design. The character itself I'm not too familiar with. I believe his name or its name is Alcatraz. Now, once you get beyond the source material recognition of this particular toy, what you have is an extremely well-designed representation of the video game character model. The figure is largely, if not entirely, composed of an extremely dense PVC material. Softer PVC formulas are often used in toy manufacturing to be parts that are either more risk in terms of breaking or more risk in terms of harming children, such as airplane nose cones. It's widely used for 6-inch and 3.75-inch toys such as Marvel Legends, Marvel Universe, G.I. Joe, and so on. Now, unfortunately, the formulas and densities used for the parts in these particular toy lines I mentioned results in a more gummy and possibly even flimsy feeling parts. A lot of people say that, for example, in some of the newer G.I. Joe toys, particular parts such as the hand or lower leg sculpts using PVC just feel more toyish or more fragile. However, NECA has used a different type of formula and have also used a formula that is more dense for this PVC material, and it results in a really great sort of solid feeling toy, and there is only the slightest sense of give. But to me, it's a good thing because it gives you the durability that is inherent in PVC without the potential brittleness in more rigid plastic such as ABS. Now, the accessory count is minimal with just the SCAR or SCAR 2 rifle. I can't quite remember what this particular assault rifle is called in the packaging. And that's pretty much it for accessories. The accessory count is a weaker point of the toy. However, the wonderfully sculpted recreation of the character design, combined with well-done paint applications and well-implemented articulation design, is really where this figure shines, in my opinion. And it's that articulation that allows the figure to strike a deep lunging pose like this with basically a stable foundation. Now, starting from the top, we have a ball-jointed neck. It has maximum rotational movement, but it is quite limited in its ability to look up or down. It has swivel hinge shoulders, single jointed elbows, and I think swivel wrists, but there is some play to it, so it might be a ball jointed wrist, I'm not quite sure. There's also a well-hidden chest hinge system within the torso, and to me it's the highlight of the articulation design of the figure. It pretty much is flawless in terms of its implementation into the sculpt. It's really difficult to tell that you have these hinge joints within the torso. And it's these hinge joints that allow the figure to reach across its chest to a good degree, and it allows a more natural looking pose when doing things like holding the rifle in front of its body. Now, the next point of articulation is the ball joint at mid-torso. It allows a really good range of movement. And we have like swivel hinge joints at the hips that allow a really great range of movement. Again, as you can see by this deep lunging pose I have the toy displayed in, it wouldn't be possible without the hip joints. Now, further down we have double hinged knees. We have hinged ankles that allow a really good range of forward and back movement. And finally, we have cut joints at the middle of the feet. It's something that NECA has used a couple of times, I believe. I know other toy lines such as Play Arts Kai have used a cut joint for the foot as well. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that kind of joint. I would rather have no cut joint in the middle of the foot, to be honest, just because I feel like it really gives the figure itself an odd appearance when you do utilize those joints. It kind of makes the foot look like it's broken, but on the other hand, it does allow the figure to be posed with more stability in positions where the legs are wider apart like this. So I think, you know, the visual appearance is an understandable and I think an acceptable sort of con when you do have the added benefit of more stability in certain poses. Now, let's look at the impressive sculpting by the artists who worked on this figure. Now, I haven't, again, played the Crysis games. I've only seen the character from screen captures and official artwork images, but from what I can see, the representation is quite accurate, quite faithful and true to the video game model. I really like how the nanosuit design uses the human muscular system as an inspiration. Throughout the sculpt, we see striations similar to how the human muscle groups are arranged. I especially like the naturalistic curves in areas of the figure, such as the forearms, where there's a subtle curve to the limbs, and even though it's not something that a person might pick up right away, it sets it apart from many other toy designs where the sculpts are of human or human-like designs, but I don't think they really strike this level of subtlety, and that sort of subtle nuance in the sculpt really adds a significant dimension of aesthetics when you look at the sculpt as a whole, and you just really see, because of this figure design, where it almost looks like in a way a naked man, essentially, because of the way that the suit design is based off of the human muscular system. You really need that extra sense or attention to detail in order to get this right, and I think this time for sure NECA's artists have gotten it right. The paint application is good. There's really no sign, as far as I can see, of outright bleeding of paint or overspray on my figure. The body and most of the head has a matte finish, which I do prefer for most figures, while there is a spot on the top of the helmet which for some reason has semi-gloss finished paint. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure if that's true to the video game character model, but to me it kind of stood out, and it is kind of odd. If it really bothered me, I would probably just use some clear coat on top of that with a matte finish to make it match everything else on the figure. Now, I think overall, in my opinion, this is one of the rare cases where great toy design meets affordability. I mean, how many instances do we actually see these days of this level of sculpting, articulation design, trueness to source material, and material quality, all of that put together, priced at under $20 on the retail market? I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, unless it's something else that is, in a way, an exception like this figure in the current toy market. I mean, most other figures, they have significant drawbacks that are often outweighed by their significant positive points. But even though I bought this figure like 2 years ago or so, it still remains one of the top toys in my personal collection. It's something that I think is a really great breakthrough. I can see some of the similar sort of design points in current and future NECA designs, such as their Predator series with the depiction of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Dutch character. I believe Rambo is another figure coming out in this month, April, or next month, May, early on, and it has a very similar design look, I think. Also, there are the Aliens figures that are coming out, I think, in June as well. And all these figures, from what I've seen in press photos and photos from people who've gone to the toy fairs and toy conventions, it looks like a lot of their, if not all of their design points, have started with this figure in the NECA Crysis 2 figure of Alcatraz. So, definitely, I would wholeheartedly recommend this figure to any fan of the video games of Crysis who want a posable three-dimensional representation of the game character. And I would also definitely recommend to any toy collector, anybody who's into 6-inch or larger scale figures. I believe this figure is basically within the 7-inch scale. Any toy collector is into science fiction, into video games, into anything that looks like this. Like, I mean, if you see this on the shelf and you like the look of it, I'd say get it. It's essentially an extremely posable statue if you want to look at it that way. It's got all the posability of an action figure with a sculpt and paint quality of a statue. Now, unfortunately, this is a figure that is no longer in production. The only way to acquire it is through secondary markets such as eBay or other online sources, or being lucky enough to see it at a retail store. Now, in my area, I'm a Canadian, I live in Canada, and in my city, we used to have a retail outlet called Zellers. It's been closed up and essentially purchased by Target. And it is essentially the Canadian equivalent to the Target retail stores in the United States. And essentially right up to the end of the operations of Zellers, I saw these Crysis 2 figures on the pegs. So you may still be lucky enough to see this toy at your local retail stores. If you do see it and you have any interest in the design itself from a visual standpoint, again, I would recommend that you buy it because it's a really posable figure. It looks great on the shelf. It feels great in the hand when you're just posing it and essentially playing around with the figure, simply because, again, the dense PVC material really gives it a solid nature that I think can garner confidence from a collector who sometimes may not want to really handle their toys or their figures in the collection for fear of breaking them. There's really no way that this is a figure that would break outside of a fluke occurrence. So that's it for my review. As usual, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you at the next video.